Hello, my name is Carly Post. I'm a third grade teacher in Cedar Springs, Michigan, and I'm going to explain today an example of elementary reading response and technology integration using NoteShelf and a Metacognition Journal. In my classroom, we use the app NoteShelf to help students consider what they're thinking. We call it thinking about thinking, referring to metacognition. Instead of using paper notebooks or journals or bookmarks, we use this app and we give each child a notebook in his or her iPad called So-and-so's Metacognition. So here's an example called Grayson's Metacognition. Each morning when the students come to school while they're eating breakfast, the students will begin a new page in their metacognition notebook. They'll prepare the page for the day, and then later during reading workshop, they'll complete the page using their thinking from that day's independent reading. Here is an example of a student page from a Metacognition journal. In the morning, they'll complete these parts: the date, the title, the author, and the start page. If the student is reading the same book that he or she was yesterday, we permit them to write the word same for the title and the author portion. It saves a lot of time, especially when you're talking about 8-year-olds. Then later, when we begin our reading workshop, the students will have their metacognition journals next to them as they read. That way, if they come across a new vocabulary word, they can write that word down under new and confusing words and use a resource to look it up later. We also have these portions called thought tracks. We've got thought track 1, 2, and 3. Most students complete 1 to 2 thought tracks a day, but we keep 3 on there for students who are prepared to challenge their abilities. The thought track simply asks students to consider what they've been reading for the day and what they've thought about it. We make sure to do a lot of instructional front-loading on what it means to be metacognitive, to think about one's thinking. For example, after teaching several mini-lessons on what it means to be a metacognitive thinker, I might make an anchor chart that looks like this. It gives students options for how to format their thought track. Maybe they might consider what they're synthesizing, how their thinking has changed, or what they're inferring, or thoughtful connections they're making to other texts they've read. Given those options, they're able to complete a thought track. They might type an inference, and they might move on to a synthesis, or they could move on to something they're predicting. And most of the time, I allow students to choose which focus they would like to have for their thought track for the day. Other times, if the skill is new, or if I'd like to review a skill, I'll ask students to begin their thinking with a specific sentence stem. For example, I infer that, and then I'll ask the students to record an inference from their reading of that day. Another option this page gives us is the prompt. Many teachers have found that they still enjoy using specific prompts for student thought tracks, and that they might like to use a specific list. If a teacher is interested in a specific prompt, he or she can ask the students to write down the number of the prompt, which students can then retrieve from Dropbox or a similar app, and respond specifically to that prompt. For example, prompt 16 might be to make a text-to-text connection. In that case, after the student is finished with his or her thought tracks for the day, he or she might add a prompt about thoughtful text-to-text connections. This is just one way that using the iPad enables students to monitor their thinking and also communicate that thinking. What's especially great about this notebook is that I'm able to see quickly and clearly the depth of students' thinking. Another option I have is to take this notebook or a screenshot from this notebook and upload it straight to Dropbox. That way I have all of the students' thought tracks in front of me as I consider this type of formative assessment in my next direction for my mini lessons. It's an elegant, excellent, streamlined way for students to communicate their thinking and for me to understand it.